So now, casting our minds back to a May afternoon in Wales, 2006, obviously the FA Cup final against Liverpool, one of the most memorable days in West Ham's recent history, sadly for some of the wrong reasons. Matt, can you talk us through that day, sort of from start to finish and everything from your point of view?
Yeah, obviously, it's first of all a day I'll never forget, for good reasons and bad reasons. Obviously the bad reason being the result. Prior to that game I'd really badly twisted my ankle in training. Christian Daly went through me and I tore all the ligaments in my ankle 2 weeks before the game, so I didn't even know if I was going to make it. I spent the majority of those 2 weeks in a hyperbaric chamber where it basically gets all your blood flowing and gets the bruising out quicker. So, I didn't train a lot, but luckily enough Pardew put me in the starting 11. I thought the team played well, thought I played well. It was an unbelievable day. We went 2-0 up. Just, you know, unbelievable scenes really. And Liverpool gradually come back into the game, as all top sides do. But we weathered the storm. Conchas scored the cross-come goal, and I thought we were going to hold on. I come off with 5 minutes to go. More than happy with what I produced and the team. And I was saying earlier, I spoke to Ginge and James Collins and said to him, can you imagine the night we're going to have tonight? You know, we're going to go down in history. You know, people still talk about the 1980 team as legends, and we could have been, you know, held in that same esteem. And unfortunately, Steven Gerrard's popped up and done what he's done for Liverpool for many a year, and it was just heart-wrenching. And the change room after, I've never experienced anything like it. You know, the lads were literally in bits. There was tears a lot, and no one basically spoke to each other. We were just absolutely devastated because we genuinely thought we'd won it, and we deserved to win it as well. So to have it taken away from us like that was really hard to take. But it was a good team, a young, hungry team. We'd done well that season. I think finished 8th, did we, or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. So we had a great year. It was just so unfortunate the way that cup final played out, and there was hardly anyone left to take any penalties at the end. And you look at Anton taking a penalty and think, you know, if players like me and Dean Ashton was still on the pitch, maybe we'd have won that shootout. But all ifs and buts, it wasn't to be. And just, you know, talking about it now makes my stomach churn. I can't believe it. Not got an FA Cup winners medal.
Yeah, I'm sure all the viewers now will be shedding a few tears. William, were you crying to your pillow that night?
I actually watched the game at Upton Park, funnily enough. They had the screens, they did a special thing, and so I watched it at Upton Park, and yeah, it was absolutely gutting. I mean, I thought Dean Ashton was phenomenal that day. Yeah. And for me, he could have become one of England's best ever strikers, and it was devastating really for every fan of West Ham what happened on England duty, ironically, for his injury, because he seemed to have a combination of Shearer and Sheringham, and he had everything about him, and that day he was class. And we just couldn't believe it really, and Gerrard popped up, and whether we went to sleep a little bit or whether we felt we'd already done enough, I don't quite know, but yeah, it was gutting, but we'll hopefully get there again soon enough.
Maybe this season. And obviously, following that defeat, everything sort of seemed to fall apart with the Pardew reign at West Ham. I mean, we were fighting a relegation battle for the whole of the next season. What do you think was the main factor behind that sort of downturn in form? Was it the morale sort of deflating effect of the FA Cup? Was it Pardew's errors? Was it sort of player rows within the team? It
was a mixture of both. The new owners come in the following season. They wanted to change things about. I think they wanted to change the manager. That was always in the back of the head. So players were starting to feel uneasy. Tevez and Mascherano come in, so that, you know, players are wondering whether they're going to be in the team, etc. There's a mixture of everything really. Alan Pardew was a good manager. A lot of people got a lot of opinions on him. For me personally, I've always said this: he was a very good manager. Tactically, he was very good. I know he's made mistakes since that we all know about, and some would probably say he's having himself a little bit, but he was a good manager, and he done well for West Ham, and I think it's important people remember that.
Well, one of the players who was talked about a lot that season was Nigel Reo-Coker, who is labelled as a traitor now then for his departure from the club, and because he sort of claimed he'd been a scapegoat hung out to dry. What were your thoughts on that whole situation?
Well, I thought there was obviously some kind of destabilising influence at the club, and because a lot of stories were coming out, and you wonder where that was coming from. So somebody had something against Pardew for sure, because there was a lot of stuff coming out that he wouldn't have authorised. But there was all the press stuff about the Bentley boys, I don't know if you remember that, where it was Reo-Coker, Anton Ferdinand, a few other people with discipline issues. I don't know what was going on, but there's obviously a little bit more to it. But I agree with Matt. Alan Pardew is a very good manager. He plays good football, tactically astute. So to be honest, it was a bit of a shame what happened. I think if you're talking about Rio Coker in particular, what's happened to his career afterwards, not very much. And you know, it strikes me a little bit of the Ravel Morrison about him. He's someone who has issues with different people, and maybe needs to look at himself more than anyone else. But for sure, you know, Pardew did really well, and I think there was a lot of turbulence, as Matt said, with ownership, a lot of stuff going on. Yeah, it was a shame, but we had some good football there, and as you said, we did very well getting to the cup final.
Well, Pardew, obviously, he's doing well at Palace at the moment, just joined there, but could you see him being one of the men to maybe take West Ham forward at the Olympic Stadium? Could he come back as manager one day, do you think, Matt? I
think so. I spoke to Alan Pardew after he left West Ham, and I said thank you to him for what he'd done for me personally. He was good to me. He got West Ham up through the playoffs. The first season we lost it. That was a bad game against Palace. The second season we got promoted. The next season we're back at Millennium Stadium again in a cup final. So he delivered some good times to West Ham fans. And he was genuinely gutted that he'd left the club. He thought he could take the club on even further. But it was just the timing that was so unfortunate, I think, with the new owners coming in, them not really wanting Pardew there, wanting to change things about when it didn't really need changing, if we're honest. Well, I don't think it did. So it was just unfortunate that circumstances prevailed like that. But he was genuinely gutted that he left West Ham in the way he did, and I think he'd definitely like to come back.
Well, the man who came in to replace Pardew, Alan Curbishley, obviously fairly highly rated by West Ham fans, but perhaps do you think that's not quite accurate of his time at the club?
He did okay at West Ham, saved from relegation that year. He had an awful lot of money to spend. Did he spend it wisely? I don't think so. He didn't have a lot about him as a manager, to be completely honest with you. He wasn't very charismatic, to say the least, but you know, you don't get on with everyone, I suppose, and he was a manager that I couldn't really warm to, and that was just me.
Well, what were your thoughts on?
Yeah, well, I thought Curbishley did do very well at Charlton over a long period of time, and he brought through some good players. Obviously, Rob Lee, who then went on to play for West Ham, and there's a few others, Matt Holland as well. But I think I don't know. I mean, he might have been a certain type of club man. You know, given resources, he wasn't very good. And certainly, I'm thinking of Kieran Dyer and Ljungberg were disastrous purchases, massively over the odds for basically people who are injury prone. No one else wanted them. You know, so. Ultimately, he didn't do that well. Wouldn't say he's the worst manager West Ham have ever had, but certainly I'd rate Pardew. I think Pardew's done very, very well. He had to put up with an awful lot of nonsense from Newcastle fans, and I think he emerged from that with tremendous credit, and he's already doing a great job at Palace. So it's good to hear what Matt said, that he was sad about leaving the club, and you never know, he's a dynamic young manager. So
could come back one day. Yeah.